Imagine a steel giant the size of a small town, litters of fighters, a flight deck buzzing like a city, suddenly a target in an ocean of threats it cannot see. 10 miles away, a hidden prow breaks the surface and launches a weapon that could end the carrier's mission before its captain knows exactly what happened. Now imagine those weapons belong not to a superpower but to a network of allies, drones, cruise missiles, submarines, and guided mines, many of them operated or supplied by Australia. Welcome to Doctrine of War. In this two-part series we ask the blunt question millions of dollars in procurement decisions are answering right now. Could Australia, with its current and planned arsenal, sink a Chinese aircraft carrier? Part 1 examines the systems, concepts, and strategic logic that make that question plausible, and why Beijing quietly funds countermeasures. If you like deep, cinematic military analysis that connects hardware to strategy, take a second to like and subscribe to Doctrine of War. We'll break this down with clarity, not hype. Stick around. In Part 2 we'll walk through realistic scenarios, timelines, and the limits of these weapons in a real war. The toolbox, weapons and systems that threaten a carrier. When militaries talk about carrier killing, they never mean a single missile or a lone torpedo. Modern anti-carrier strategies are layered, a web of capabilities that, used together, raise the risk to any large surface ship. Australia doesn't field all of these tools independently yet, but in partnership with allies and with recent acquisitions, it can assemble a credible toolkit. Here's what matters. Long-range anti-ship missiles. The classic answer to carrier vulnerability is long-range anti-ship cruise missiles. These weapons fly low, use terrain masking and sea skimming to evade radar, and terminate their flight with high-speed maneuvers that stress ship defenses. For smaller navies, such missiles are the great equalizer. Relatively cheap, long-ranging, hard to defend against in numbers, and usable from ships, aircraft, or coastal batteries. Australia has invested heavily in modern anti-ship missiles for its surface fleet and coastal defenses, systems designed to be networked into wider sensor grids. When layered with allied missiles and supported by intelligence from aircraft and satellites, these weapons can saturate a carrier battle group's defenses and create lethal windows. Submarines and torpedoes. Silence is the submarine's first weapon. Diesel-electric boats operating on battery or air-independent propulsion can be whisper-quiet, prowling choke points and shipping lanes without detection. A well-placed torpedo salvo, particularly by modern heavyweight torpedoes with wake homing or acoustic countermeasures, can cripple the propulsion or aviation capability of a carrier. Australia's submarine force, historically focused on the Collins class, presents a stealthy undersea option that, in cooperation with allied nuclear submarines, adds a pervasive and unseen layer of danger for any large surface group. Submarines also act as intelligence collectors, passing contact data to other platforms so missiles and aviation can be cued more precisely. Standoff strike and land-launched cruise missiles. Shore-based strike assets change the geometry of a maritime battle. Land-launched cruise missiles and long-range anti-ship variants can reach carrier operating areas from surprising distances, forcing task forces to disperse and complicating logistics. Australia's move toward longer-range strike, operating with allies and buying or developing cruise missile capabilities, means coastal batteries or allied aircraft can put the carrier on notice before it even approaches contested waters. The strategic effect is deterrence. A carrier must operate further out or accept risk. Unmanned systems and swarms. The drone revolution matters at sea too. Low-cost aerial drones can swarm to overwhelm point defenses. Unmanned surface vessels, USVs, can act as decoys or deliver explosive payloads. Autonomous undersea drones threaten to complicate submarine and anti-submarine warfare. Australia's defense procurement emphasizes unmanned surveillance and strike integration. A coordinated wave of unmanned threats, synchronized with missile salvos and submarine attacks, multiplies the problem for a carrier's layered defenses, especially its close-in weapon systems, CIWS, and point defense missiles, which are optimized to handle a limited number of fast-moving targets, not thousands of small, cheap, and expendable drones. Integrated air and sea surveillance. The sensor net weapons don't act alone. Sensors make them lethal. P-8 maritime patrol aircraft, airborne early warning assets, maritime patrol drones, satellites, and allied intelligence sharing systems, think networks of radar, SIGINT, and space-based ISR, feed continuous data to weapon shooters. Australia's investments in maritime patrol aircraft, satellites, and network command systems mean its missiles and submarines can be cued more quickly and accurately, turning single-shot engagements into coordinated ambushes. In modern warfare, the side that sees first, and keeps seeing, has a decisive advantage. Mines, electronic warfare, and cyber effects. Never underestimate asymmetric warfare. Sea mines are cheap and devastating. Even a single mine can take a carrier out of action for months. Electronic warfare can blind or confuse radars and communications. Cyber operations can degrade logistics, targeting grids and command links. Australia and its partners have invested in coastal surveillance and countermeasure systems, but adversaries also invest in EW and cyber. The maritime battlefield is past purely kinetic thinking. It's now a fused domain where non-kinetic attacks can create lethal opportunities for kinetic weapons to finish the job. Why together they matter individually, a missile, a torpedo, or a drone wave can be repelled by a modern carrier strike group's defenses. Together, when the attack is synchronized across domains, built on good intelligence and timed to exploit gaps in air cover and ship readiness, they present a cumulative level of risk that changes the calculus of carrier operations. That's the essential point. Australia's weapons aren't a solo knockout punch. They're components in a distributed anti-carrier architecture that, combined with allied assets, becomes strategically meaningful. The strategic logic: why Australia would target a carrier. Let's be clear, sinking a carrier is not a policy objective announced in parliaments, it's a military contingency planning scenario. But the logic of sea control explains why China's carriers are a target in that scenario. Maritime choke points and logistics. Carriers operate to project air power and protect sea lanes. Deny the carrier, and you erode an adversary's power projection and sea control capability. Deterrence through attrition. If attackers can credibly threaten a carrier, adversaries may be deterred from risking their fleets in contested waters. The strategic aim is not glory, it's creating uncertainty and cost. Alliance leverage. Australia doesn't act alone. Its weapons are part of an alliance ecosystem with the US, Japan, the UK, and others. Even if Canberra cannot single-handedly sink a carrier, it can provide decisive sensors, strike options, or logistics that contribute to an allied campaign. Asymmetric advantage. China's carrier fleet is expensive and relatively vulnerable in littoral waters where submarines, anti-ship missiles, and mines can be concentrated. Smaller states use geography, technology, and alliances to offset sheer mass. From plan to reality, how an engagement would unfold. Now we take that toolbox into a real fight. How would an anti-carrier campaign actually play out in the Indo-Pacific? What are the windows of vulnerability? And crucially, where does the plan break down? Phase 0, shaping the battlespace. A successful anti-carrier campaign begins long before a missile is launched. Phase 0 is information warfare and posture. Patrols, reconnaissance flights, diplomatic moves, and economic pressure that shape where and when a carrier must operate. Australia's role here is largely about intelligence and shaping. Maritime patrols, manned and unmanned, SIGINT collection, and island-based radars feed a common operating picture to allies. This creates the initial conditions for any strike. Carriers are detected earlier, their operating patterns mapped, and their likely replenishment routes identified. Phase 1. Contact and isolation. Once a carrier transits into a contested area, the immediate task for any attacker is isolation. Submarines shadow silently, aircraft and satellites track movements, and long-range anti-ship missiles from ships or shore batteries begin moving into launch positions. The goal is to fragment the carrier strike group's sensor and responder loops, disrupt airborne early warning coverage, stress logistics by threatening tankers and supply ships, and force the carrier to adopt fuel-saving or defensive patterns that reduce sortie rates. Australia's P-8s and maritime drones, and allied ISR, make the initial detection and locking possible. If the carrier is forced to operate farther from contested waters to keep its logistics safe, its air wing's effective reach drops dramatically. Phase 2, saturation and multi-domain shock. This is the decisive sequence. A coordinated barrage arrives from 3 vectors. Subs unleash torpedoes, coastal and sea-launched missiles approach from thousands of kilometers away, and drone swarms press in to overwhelm CIWS and point defense systems. Electronic warfare scrambles targeting radars. Cyber operations attempt to corrupt situational displays. The key is timing. Missiles must be near terminal phase when drone swarms arrive, and sub-launch torpedoes must be on intercept courses that split the carrier's ASW and damage control attention. Australia's credible contribution here is not lone heroics. It's targeting data from P-8s, satellites, and coastal sensors, missile launches from allied platforms, and submarine presence. Think of Canberra as the whisper that puts the predator on the trail and then hands the strike to the alliance. Phase 3. Finish and denial. If even a single weapon ruptures the carrier's propulsion or internal damage control zones, the result can be catastrophic. Carriers are resilient by design, but they are not invulnerable. A well-placed torpedo can jam propellers. An internal magazine fire can end aviation operations. Repeated missile hits can overwhelm firefighting and auxiliary systems. At this stage, attackers switch to denial. Mines are seeded to prevent rescue or towing. Follow-on strikes target repair ships and escort destroyers, and continued EW prevents recovery. The aim is not merely to sink hull steel, but to make the carrier group combat ineffective for months, a strategic outcome far more valuable than sinking a single ship. Where the plan works, geography, timing, and alliances, the chances of success rise in constrained waters. Choke points, archipelagos, and narrow operating envelopes favor defenders that can hide missiles, position subs, and mass drones. For Australia, geography helps. The vastness of the Indo-Pacific is a double-edged sword, but so are the choke points and island chains where carriers operate when projecting power close to potential hotspots. Success also depends on timing. A carrier low on fuel or with degraded AWACS coverage is much more vulnerable. Lastly, alliance integration is critical. Canberra acting alone cannot deliver the full kill chain, but networked with US strike assets, British sensors, and Japanese maritime patrols, it forms the critical node that makes a strike plausible. If you're finding this useful, hit like and subscribe to Doctrine of War. We'll be unpacking follow-on tactics and political consequences in a moment. Your support keeps these deep dives coming. Limits, escalation, and the strategic aftermath. So far the theory looks tidy, a multi-domain ambush topples a carrier. But war is messy. Here are the real limits, risks, and the political calculus that could turn a tactical success into strategic ruin. Defensive depth and redundancy. Modern carrier strike groups are built with redundancy. Multiple layers of radar, electronic warfare suites, escort destroyers bristling with missiles, airborne early warning, and anti-submarine patrols. Even if one sensor node is blind, another often survives. Nuclear-powered escort subs can range wide and hunt aggressors. Carriers can change operating patterns, disperse strike aircraft to allied bases, and burn through fuel and ordnance reserves to keep fighting. The more allies a carrier has on call, airfields, tankers, surveillance, the harder it is to isolate and destroy. Intelligence fragility and deception. The attacker's greatest vulnerability is intelligence failure. If tracking is poor, or if the carrier executes deceptive moves, feints, electronic masking, false targets, the attack can miss or hit escorts instead. A tactical failure with political consequences. Australia and partners rely heavily on shared ISR. If that network is degraded by cyber attacks or spoofing, the whole plan unravels. Deception will almost certainly be part of any great power defense playbook. Escalation. From ship to state, this is the strategic knife edge. An attack on a carrier is not just military attrition. It is a political and symbolic strike on a nation's core power projection capability. The United States treats carrier strikes as exceptional provocation. An attack on a carrier would likely invite a massive, proportionate response. For Australia, contributing to an attack, even via sensors or strike data, risks escalation beyond the initial theater, pulling Canberra into a larger war. Leaders must calculate whether denying a carrier's operation is worth the risk of drawing full Allied retaliation, potentially expanding the conflict to other domains, strikes on Australian bases, cyber retaliation, economic warfare. Legal and moral constraints. There are also legal and moral limits. Intentionally attacking a ship with a large number of non-combatants, carrier crew includes support and civilian contractors, or targeting rescue and medical assets crosses lines that can delegitimize a campaign. Mines and swarms that cannot discriminate between military and civilian shipping risk turning neutral maritime traffic into collateral. Democracies must weigh military gain against legal norms and international opinion. Operational logistics, sustainment and attrition. A high-tempo anti-carrier campaign burns ordnance, depletes missiles, and strains submarine patrol rates. If it doesn't achieve decisive results quickly, attackers face diminishing returns. Limited missile inventories, the need to rotate subs to safe ports, and exhaustion of drone swarms. Australia's own logistic tail, maintenance, munitions, and trained crews, would be under stress. A prolonged campaign favors the defender, who can call on larger industrial bases to replace losses. The political cost, domestic and diplomatic fallout. Even a successful strike carries a political bill. Domestically, public support for contributing to an action that risks direct war with a major power may erode political consensus. Diplomatically, states that provided sensor data or basing access become targets of coercion, sanctions, or cyber operations. Australia must weigh the strategic benefit of denying a carrier against the likely diplomatic backlash in Asia and the economic consequences of a broader conflict. What does success mean? Beyond the sinking, it's important to redefine success. The aim for Australia and allies wouldn't necessarily be to sink a carrier, it would be to raise the cost of operations so high that adversaries must rethink force posture. If a carrier can no longer operate safely within a theater without extraordinary escort and logistics, its deterrent value there collapses. That outcome, attrition, denial, and operational paralysis, may be strategically preferable and politically more attainable than an outright sinking. The deterrent paradox. Here's the paradox. Weapons that can threaten a carrier also make conflict more dangerous. If both sides believe carriers are vulnerable, the first to strike may seek advantage in a tightly compressed window, increasing the risk of miscalculation. That's why much of modern deterrence revolves not just around weapons, but around signaling, crisis management, and the political will to absorb shocks. Final assessment. Can Australia make Beijing nervous? Yes, in a coalition. Australia's arsenal, integrated with allied ISR and strike systems, can create credible denial in specific theaters and windows. Submarines, coastal missiles, drones, and a robust sensor net make carriers less free to operate near contested shores. That changes Beijing's calculus. Carriers are riskier, require more escort, and offer diminishing returns close to hostile coasts. No, if acting alone. Canberra lacks the industrial weight and long-range strike inventory to destroy a modern carrier on its own or to absorb the broad strategic fallout that would follow. The true power emerges in partnership, coordinated targeting, shared logistics, and political unity. A closing thought: strategy over spectacle. Weapons grab headlines, but wars are decided by doctrine, logistics, and politics. The most effective anti-carrier campaigns are those that combine patient intelligence, alliance diplomacy, and staged coercion, not dramatic torpedo shots. For Australia, the point is not to dream of a single heroic strike. It is to shape a region where carriers cannot operate unmolested, where deterrence is real because the cost of aggression is unavoidable. This is Doctrine of War. If you want the follow-up, we'll walk through a minute-by-minute, sensor-by-sensor timeline of a plausible strike, the countermeasures Beijing is developing, and the political scripts Canberra would need to write to survive the aftermath. Hit like, subscribe, and share if you value sober, detailed strategic analysis. Because in the age of networks and drones, the quiet decisions at sea may determine whether peace holds or shatters.